So I know in my last video I rambled on for like 10 minutes about my love for the nickel plate road and modeling desire for the nickel plate road. So it's probably really confusing if you watch that last video why my new video here is showcasing a Penske engine. This is an MTH Premier Penske J1a 210-4 Texas steam locomotive. I acquired this engine by chance and it was part of a trade with my friend Sean from Sean Station YouTube. Check him out, Sean Station on YouTube. But he was listed this engine either for sale or for trade in the Matt and Matt O-Scale Trains Discord server, which if you're not part of that community, I highly recommend joining it. It's great. But he listed this either for sale or for trade, and I opted to trade. I traded one of my diesel engines that I liked it, but wasn't running it all too much, and I went to a good home. It'll fit right into his collection, and he'll still post videos and such about it. So I'm happy that it's going to somewhere to a good home. But I traded that, and then I sold another engine. I used the money the money that I got from selling that engine to fund the rest of the cash I needed for this purchase. But again, this is an MTH Premier Penske J1a. Now, again, it may seem odd that I have a Penske engine when I talked about how my interest now is really modeling the nickel plate, and this actually does fit into my modeling a little bit. And the layout that I should be building pretty soon here, it's just a matter of clearing out the space. I decided to model, well, in the planning of that layout, I knew I wanted to model the nickel plate. The nickel plate was a decently large railroad, and I wasn't sure exactly what part I wanted to model the nickel plate, other than I knew I wanted to model somewhere on the main line. The nickel plate's Buffalo to Chicago main line, excuse me. And so in the planning of that, I didn't want to model just the nickel plate because I've been buying trains and collecting trains for many years, and so I have a large variety of railroads represented in my collection. Now I am trying to thin down most of the variety and gear it more towards nickel plate, but I didn't want to restrain myself to just one railroad and nothing else. So when I was searching for layouts and what part of the nickel plate to model, I did have that in mind of maybe trying to include an interchange or something that I could showcase a little bit of variety. And I came across the little town of Brockton, New York on the nickel plate, which is actually a pretty important spot on the railroad. Brockton is located at, I believe, milepost 91, I want to say, on the nickel plate main, which is 91 miles west of Buffalo. And Brockton was an important location on the nickel plate main, as this was where the Pennsylvania Railroad Chautauqua branch, which came north from Oil City, which is in the remote Pittsburgh area. It's decently far north of Pittsburgh, but it comes up from that area. It came north from Oil City and it went to Buffalo, and it came directly north to Brockton, and then at Brockton it actually turned west, running directly alongside the nickel plate's main line. And it actually served as the nickel plate's eastbound main, so it was double tracked, with the eastbound track being the Chautauqua branch of the Penske and the westbound track being the nickel plate's own main line. So the Penske and nickel plate were actually dually operated for about 60 miles or so between Brockton and just west of Buffalo. And so with modeling Brockton, that meant I could include the nickel plate, and I could also have a decent Penske representation as well by having Brockton. And so with that in mind, I was keeping an open eye for some Penske engines. I wasn't really looking to buy one right away, but if one came up, like for example with this engine, I would jump on it. And so when this came up, I wasn't in the market for a Penske engine, not directly, but the offer came up and I jumped on it. I think it's a good one. I love the J1s. I've said for a long time the M1 Mountains are my favorite Penske steam engine, but after having this engine and doing some research, just admiring it, I think that might change that to say the J1 is my favorite Penske engine. It's a really just mean looking engine. I love the front end with just how all this stuff on the front end coupled with the smooth streamlined pilot. It's just a big engine. I mean, it's definitely the biggest engine I have in my roster right now. It definitely dwarfs. Well, I wouldn't say it dwarfs, but it's definitely sizably larger than the Berkshires. But you see, it has 10 driving wheels. I love the cab. The cab is just neat. I love the cab windows, and of course, it's equipped with the Penske's iconic long haul tender, which is just so cool looking. Now, to my knowledge, the Penske or the J1s did not operate on the Chautauqua branch. The Chautauqua branch had a lot of tight curves and steep grades, and the J1s with this long wheelbase, the 10 drive wheels, they were relatively restricted on where they could go, and so I think they spent most of their time east of Altoona on the Pittsburgh main line, and in the later years, in the late 50s, they spent time out in Ohio hauling coal around Sandusky. So I don't believe he's ever ran on the Chautauqua branch, but I took a little bit of creative liberty with the J1 and the whole Pensy side of the modeling on my future layout. I'm not too much of a rivet counter with the Pensy. I just kind of wanted to buy things that I liked. And so this kind of fits perfectly into it. You know, it might not have fit, but it looks cool. It's my favorite, like I said, I think it's my favorite Pensy steam engine, so I really wanted I really wanted to have an opportunity, or I really wanted to have one of these on the Pensy side of my layout. But as you can see, I did weather it, obviously. I weathered it all with powders, whereas I know a pretty common way of weathering steam locomotives, especially in O-scale, I think, is with an airbrush. Believe it or not, I actually own an airbrush, but I just don't want to use it. I wouldn't say I'm scared to use it, I'm just too lazy to use it, because using an airbrush requires a lot of cleaning and preparation work, fitting the paint and whatnot, and I don't have any kind of paint booth or anything to do that in. So I do all my weathering with powders, excuse me. So I use a lot of grimy black along the front, where the smoke box is. I actually darkened up, I darkened up the graphite pretty noticeably here, so it's more of a black color. And then right around going back, I use a lot of white powder, and I used a picture that I could find of a J1, I think it's in Louisville in 1952. And it's neat because the front is black like this, and then as you get back towards the cab, there's a lot of white, I'm assuming from all like the runoff of all the, you know, the water and the firebox and such. And so I kind of based the weathering on this engine off of that picture. I think I captured it pretty well. I think it looks pretty good. I really like too how the dry wheels are white. They're pretty much white because of sand use. That was something I wanted to try out in this engine. I've done a little bit on my other engines, but not to the extent I did on this one. So I think it's a neat touch is how I was able to bring the white in. And same thing on the tender. The tender's a pretty generic weathering job, but I think it works. It does the job pretty well. The tender on this thing is such a neat looking tender. It's the Pensy long haul. I really like how the skirting of the tender actually comes down below the trucks a little bit. Has the massive 8-wheel trucks, has a doghouse on top. Like the tender's honestly like one of my favorite parts of this engine. And has the train phone antenna. Just a really neat, mean looking tender. Really complements the engine really nicely. But yeah, it's a really nice engine. Really happy with it. I'm actually going over to my friend Nick's. He models the Pensy in like 2 days. So I'll definitely bring it over there, and I'll post some videos of it running over there. It's actually equipped with a custom sound set by my friend Isaac, O-Scale Every Day. Also on the Matt and Matt server. Again, great resource. I've made so many friends on there, got to know so many people. I've had a lot of, you know, I got this engine from that server. If you're not part of it, you should really join that server. I can maybe drop the link in the description. But anyway, he makes custom MTH sound files using MTH's ADPCM, or not MTH, using the ADPCM program. It's like a third-party program that you can use to edit, create sounds, and then import them into MTH sound files. This is actually equipped with a completely custom dynamo sound, bell sound, whistle sound, chuffing sound. It really complements the look of the engine with a nice custom sound set. So I'm definitely going to post some videos of it running on Nick's layout with that custom sound set loaded up into it. But anyway, I just wanted to showcase my new engine that I have added to the roster. I'm really excited to have the layout started, which I hope to have started in the next couple weeks. It's just a matter, it's going to go over in this area of the room along this wall. It's going to be about 14 feet long by 6.5 feet wide. I'm going to share more stuff on that in the coming weeks, I would hope, with the layout. Maybe we'll do like a layout track plan overview or something. But it'll be, I mean, long story short, I'm on the nickel plate. The Brockton will be one of the scenes, and then I'll model somewhere else that I like along the nickel plate. But this will look right at home, pulling coal trains to Buffalo on the Chautauqua branch eventually. Even though it's not accurate, it'll work. So anyway, thanks for watching. Like I said, I'm going to link maybe like a part 2 of this video, or I'll include in some kind of running session I do over at Nick's house on Sunday when I'll go over there. I'm recording this on Friday. Anyway, be on the lookout for that. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.